I grew up believing that faith had a strict set of rules, but somewhere along the way in this journey of life, God started meeting me in places where no rule books existed.
Welcome to Wealth and Mothers, the show where we rewrite the rules of success for women who are building businesses, creating wealth, and raising families all at the same damn time. I'm Ashley Crabb, and this isn't a show about balance, productivity, or doing more. This is a space for mothers who know they're carrying more than anyone acknowledges and who are ready to turn that into power, leadership, and wealth. Here we talk about what it actually looks like to create a movement inside the reality of motherhood. The invisible labor, the identity shifts, the ambition, the pressure, and the truth that none of it disqualifies you from wealth. It qualifies you for it. Because mothers don't need to shrink to succeed, they need to be seen. Let's get into today's episode.
Today, we are talking about something that I think we need to talk about more. Um, and that is God and spirituality. And more specifically, this myth that we have to choose between the two. Because there's a truth that has really changed everything for me recently. And that is God isn't asking me to choose between my spirit and my faith. He recognizes that I have both. And before we get too much further into today's episode, when I am speaking about God, I am speaking about a biblical God. That is the God that I grew up believing in. That is the God that I believe in today. And with that, I also recognize that your God might be different. And so I welcome that. And I welcome the higher power that you recognize. I grew up in Lancaster County, the Amish, I'm not Amish, the Mennonite, all of that. But Lancaster County, I feel, is a place where church, religion, faith is very ingrained in so much of our culture. And, that is also saying like church wasn't just an activity, it was an extension of your everyday life. Faith was a very prominent and present extension, of your home, right? But Sunday school, missions trips, Christmas services, you know, you go to them. I went to them. And honestly, I think so much of it was absolutely beautiful. I look back on going to Sunday school. I look back on going to vacation Bible school. I look back on all of the missions trips that I did, all of the services I went to, and they were beautiful. And I grew up going to a non-denominational church, which I think is pretty, I don't know. I don't know how to describe how I felt in those services, but they reminded me of a more traditional style service, right? Like traditional hymns and communion, and I do I do remember enjoying them, and I think it taught me a lot too about community and love and coming together to do good. It taught me that there is something bigger than the individual. There is something bigger than us that is guiding us and holding us and loving us. And those are so meaningful to me. But I also remember like the first time something didn't really like sit right with me in church, right? Like, or I just remember when I and I think too, like a lot of adolescents, go through not wanting to do things that the family does, or, that sort of thing, right? But I mean, like, I remember me like starting to question things at like high school age, I think, right? And not necessarily because I didn't believe, not because like I didn't still love God, but because like there was something in me, in this relationship that I was building with God, that was disconnected. And I think that like that was kind of, I think in all reality, that was probably one of the first times like I questioned my faith. And I don't know if it was that I necessarily questioned God, but I questioned my faith and my relationship with God. And it took me a while to realize that what I was really learning and what I was really coming to terms with and growing into was that my relationship with God is mine. No one else gets to define it. No one else gets to translate it. No one else gets to approve it. It's mine, right? And I think too, again, like so much of what I've been talking about recently, like I feel like when that shift happened in adolescence and as I was growing as a young adult, like I felt really secure in my belief, in what I believed and how I was practicing it, right? And but we bring this back to, my kids and having kids and being a new mother, and I started questioning my faith and my relationship again. And it was a really interesting thing because I was like, also my kids are very young, but kids are very impressionable. We start teaching them at a very young age, but I was like, what am I going to teach my kids, is this something where I want them to believe, and this is another topic for another day too, how we teach our children, but, did I want to teach them God and faith and religion in the way that I learned it exactly growing up? Or did like I want to bring in some of these other belief systems, spiritualities that I believed in, right? And so I think I fought that for a little while as a new mom. But there came a point in time where the bridge was made between God and spirituality and talking about both. Like I do talk about energy. I do talk about intuition. I do talk about signs and synchronicities, like I have crystals sitting on my desk and other areas in our home. Like my kids have pulled angel cards with me. I journal and use that as prayer and a form of communication with God, right? And like I did all of those things for a long time, but I came back to this point very recently of questioning it, of wondering, am I doing it wrong? Like, am I doing it wrong? I couldn't love God and also trust the language of the universe, of the collective, right? I couldn't pray and also ask my angels for guidance, right? I can't talk to Jesus and believe in manifestation, right? Like everything butts heads. But but then something finally clicked and I was like, "Oh my gosh, like holy shit. God created all of this. God also created my foul mouth," right? Like but if this God that I do believe in, if he didn't want me to see him in the stars or the seasons or in the collective vibrations, in these little nudges all around me, he wouldn't have woven himself into them. Like if he didn't want me to trust my intuition, he wouldn't have given me the intuition in the first place. Like, he wouldn't have given me intuition so strong that it is a physical pull in your chest, right? Spirituality does not take away from God. It doesn't take away from the relationship, the belief in God. It brought me closer to him. It brought me closer to him. And I think this is where it gets really tender, um, because I am also having to unlearn this type of religious perfectionism. And I don't want to speak to anybody else's relationship, but like, I know that I have had a complicated relationship, not with God, but with religion and the church. And this is not me bashing either one of those things, but I think it was because of the way God was explained to me and the way my relationship with God was explained to me. And I think too, like, as someone, if we think about, like, a higher power being someone who holds us and loves us and cares for us, like, they're also an authority figure, or at least, like, that's what I was taught, that, God was an authority figure instead of like this home, right? That's the best way I can describe it, is a home. And so it felt very I think it felt very negative sometimes to, like, be taught that, you follow obediently without question, because how can, like, you not question this whole world? Like, how can you go through life without questioning, right? And then we're taught that, like, your intuition is unreliable and that emotion is dangerous, and that when we focus on energy, it's woo woo. All of these actions in your life and in the way you choose to have a relationship with a higher power is this form of, like, terrible rebellion. And I think too, what I felt like I saw a lot was faith becoming a place where, like, I was told I really had to disappear. And and that's so disheartening, I think, sometimes. But, like, God never really asked women to shrink. The, you know, the outward forces asked that. People asked that. Systems asked that. Culture asked us to do that. But God never asked us to do that. Like, he he made women the carriers of intuition, the heartbeat of home. They made us the emotional he made us the emotional translators of the world, the connectors, the expanders. He gave us such a powerful role, and he gave you a spirit and a mind of free will that was big and brilliant and fucking amazing. And he never told you to cage that spirit and that spirituality in. The world did, right? And so when I talk about spirituality, when I talk about these other beliefs in something bigger than me, I'm not talking about abandoning God. I'm listening. I'm listening to myself, because we also need to recognize, like, God is in us. Like, he made us in his image. So, like, I am listening to the spirits, to God, through me. Like, and maybe that's maybe that's a hard thing to conceptualize, and, like, even in those moments, my brain kind of can't even explain what's happening, but, like, that's it, like, and you listen to those those little nudges in your chest, when something isn't aligned, or when something is super aligned, right? You pay attention to signs that show up again and again and again, repeating numbers, um sentences in a book, images, people who say exactly what you needed to hear without you telling them you needed to hear it. Listening to the way your body reacts before your mouth does. Like, being able to sense the vibrations in a room, like that. I think that spirituality in motion, but that's also faith in motion. That is divine guidance expressed through you, not in competition with you and your relationship to God. Here's the truth that, like, I just really feel like you should walk away with today. God did not ask you to shrink your spirit to prove your faith in Him. Your spirit, your recognition of all of these beautiful things around you, Mother Nature, Mother Earth, angel cards, crystals, all of it, all of it is evidence in your faith of something greater than yourself, right? Your intuition, listening to your intuition is not a form of rebellion. It is a revelation to what your purpose is. Your ability to sense energies and vibrations and recognize this collectiveness is not woo woo. It's the wisdom you have in in faith and spirituality, right? Your spiritual practices are not are not straying you from a faith in God. They're expanding you because you are allowed to have both. You are allowed to be the woman who prays to God and also pulls angel cards, who believes in crystals and Jesus and the universe, and you can be someone who feels God in church or in the forest or with your feet in the grass, right? God and your spirituality are bigger than the boxes than they have been put into. And they are certainly bigger than the boxes that you have been put into. This is not just about faith or God or spirituality. This is about women reclaiming the freedom to have a relationship with a higher power that is expansive and personal and intuitive and honest to them. This is about breaking up that belief system that women have to justify their spiritual gifts. This is about releasing guilt around believing in the gifts that God gave you. This is about releasing the guilt around the ways we feel God outside of the ways that we were taught. You are allowed to be both. You were designed to be both. Spirit and faith, logic and intuition, heaven and earth, they go together.
If this episode resonated with you, share it with another mother who is on a mission, who is building something real. This is how we change the conversation, by making sure women like us are seen, heard, and paid. And if you're ready to step into your next level of visibility, leadership, and wealth, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss what's coming next. You can also connect with me on Instagram, TikTok, my newsletter, where I share daily thoughts and conversations around motherhood, identity, and wealth. I'll leave you with this. You are not behind, you are not too much, and you do not need to choose between your family and your success. You are the woman who gets to have it both. I'll see you in the next episode.